Hi, everyone. I'm going to get started. I'll give you a minute to get seated. My name is Michelle Macheski, and for those of you that I didn't meet at the first session, I'm a conference co-chair. Last year, we heard from conference feedback that you wanted more patient voices represented at the conference, and this session, Treatment's Over, Now What, is designed to do just that. I'm honored to introduce the moderator of our panel, Amy Bertrand. Amy Bertrand is an oncology patient navigator at the University of Vermont Medical Center, University of Vermont Medical Center Cancer Center, with a focus on barriers to care, access to resources, and supportive services in coping with a new cancer diagnosis. Amy joined the Cancer Center in 2011 and has been working with cancer patients and their caregivers for over 12 years. Thank you, and Amy and all of our panelists today for joining us.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm actually stepping in and helping out for a colleague, Kathleen Macbeth, who is one of our clinic psychologists and knows these ladies quite well, and asked them to join today in the panel. And unfortunately, Kathy came down ill this week, and I offered to jump in. So I look at it more as I cannot fill Kathy's shoes. If any of you know her, she is a fantastic person who really just embraces the value of psychosocial supports and making sure that we're treating the whole patient. And that's why she thought this would be a great topic for today. And hopefully you guys find it's really beneficial to hear from patients, and especially on the topic today of what happens after treatment. So I'm Kathy's stunt double is what I decided. So I'll share with you, these are actually, thankfully, Kathy had some stuff prepared. So I'll read a little bit, but again, you guys are here to hear from these ladies, and I hope we can then open it up to some discussions as well. So the completion of cancer treatment is a milestone to celebrate. It also represents a new beginning in how to best care for yourself after treatment. The reality is that while you might be cancer-free, you are not free of cancer. Once diagnosed with cancer, your treatment becomes a part of your medical history and will influence how you manage your healthcare going forward. This panel presentation includes 3 women who have completed treatment and will share their experience beyond treatment. Discussion will include developing a survivor's wellness plan that includes ways you can take care of your physical, emotional, social, and spiritual needs. 2 important tools that we know to address in your plan, or you're developing a wellness plan, are managing stress and making time for fun. Feelings of stress, anxiety, and depression can slow a person's recovery and bring about new problems such as sleeplessness, headaches, stomach problems, and other areas of concern. Journaling, joining a support group, and practicing relaxation techniques are some areas that we can use to help manage stress. And making time for fun, getting together with friends, watch a movie, walk a dog, walk a friend's dog, or play with your kids. Laughter can reduce anxiety and improve a person's mood. Now I'd like to introduce the 3 panelists. Each one of these women, as I had shared, have completed their treatment. They have all agreed to speak regarding post-treatment and some of the challenges and gifts they have encountered. Today with us is Cheryl Fox-Odell, at the very end, Amelia Glickman, and Emily Davis. And Emily is going to start us off with her story.
Hi, my name is Emily Davis. I'm 44 years old. I was diagnosed in December of 2021, so a little over, I don't even know how many months it is, with stage 1 breast cancer. I was found on a routine mammogram, obviously a shock to me and my family. I have a 6-year-old daughter and a husband. We live in South Burlington, and obviously no one expects this. So it's still very new to me. I'm just couple months out of treatment. So I had a lumpectomy 2 days after Christmas, December 27th. I did chemo from January to March, and then I did radiation from April to May, and finished May 13th, which was amazing, or so I thought. So I work in the wedding industry, and my season basically begins May 15th. So 2 days after I finished treatment, I worked through all of my treatments. I didn't stop working. I worked full time through my treatments. I just around chemo would work from home, which for me was great because it gave me something else to focus on other than cancer. But right when my treatment ended, my season began in the wedding industry in Vermont. It's very busy. I'm still in the thick of it. Actually, this is probably one of my busiest weeks of the year. So it hasn't ended. So I stopped treatment and literally was thrown into work, which is good and bad. What I wasn't prepared for at the end of my treatment was the mental side effects that I hadn't experienced. So when I was going through treatment, I put my head down, I focused, I was just like in tunnel vision. This is what I have to go through. The physical pain I can deal with, but I wasn't prepared for the mental pain. I'm a very joyous, happy, kind, loving person. I've never battled depression. I'm not a sad human being normally. But after I finished treatment, I had 2 months where I wouldn't stop crying. I was, I wouldn't say I was depressed, but maybe I was. And it was very hard for me to wrap my head around the new normal and what just happened to me. I didn't know how to process that yet. So luckily I found Kathy and had therapy. I did other things such as yoga nidra, which really helped me kind of ease the pain and forget things while I was in that state of mind. I exercised more than I ever have, which is wonderful. So I had to really work out the pain and the suffering of what just happened, and also the fear that it can come back at any time. And obviously I'm still processing all of that too, but I have found that I had a couple months where I really had to find the new me and the new normal in what this world of cancer is. And it took a lot of time and effort and tears and joy. But ultimately, I'm here, and I'm here for my daughter and my husband. So the joy has to outweigh the fears. I'll stop there.
Hello, how's the volume? Good. All right. So my name is Amelia, as I said, and I was diagnosed when I was 19 and I'm 20 now. And it was definitely threw a wrench in my plans a little bit. I was at the time doing a gap year in California, very far from my family who's from Vermont. And it took over 6 months to actually get a diagnosis. And during that time, it was a lot of undiagnosed pain. So I had to move home early from that program, which was a bummer, but I'm glad that I was still able to do at least part of that program. And then eventually, after a lot of physical pain, I was diagnosed at the end of the summer of, not this one, but the last. So I guess that's 2021. Yeah. And I got treatment at Dartmouth Hitchcock. It was like 50-50 between UVM or there, and they had a bed open first. So I did 6 months of treatment there. It was 6 rounds inpatient. And I stayed overnight 5 days each round. And then I would go home, and I had a little less than 3 weeks to recover from that. And then I would go back. And I think I have a lot of parallels in terms of during that treatment experience, I think that your body is fully in survival mode. So I felt like I was processing a lot of emotions, but I wasn't processing everything that needed to be processed, because it's just self-preservation to not process everything. And I had a really, really wonderful oncology team there. And now I've transferred my care to UVM Medical Center, and I have a wonderful team here too, to follow up with all of the aftermath of treatment. And something that was a big shock to me, and why I'm here speaking about this, Kathy asked me to share some experiences I've had post actual active treatment. And I think that in the oncology world, that often gets overlooked. And I've had a lot of experiences where it feels like once the actual treatment is over, you're done, everything's fine, everything's back to normal. But in a similar way, I started college 11 days after my last round of chemo, and that was intense. And so I definitely wasn't emotionally prepared for all of the just symptoms of PTSD and everything that I'd just gone through to surface post-treatment. And so I'm really excited to be here and talk about some of the resources I've found that have helped me get through that. Something that has been a really, really life-changing for me has been, there's a lot of programs for young adult cancer survivors that are outdoors based and mostly paid for, which is really awesome. And you get to connect with other people who've been through similar things. And I think that that was really made the difference for me, because it can feel, being at college around a lot of young people, that the idea of your own mortality and the mortality of others isn't something that we often think about, and that's a good thing, and I'm really happy about that. But at the same time, it can be really isolating. So I'm looking forward to answering questions and talking more about ways to connect with other survivors and with other people, whether they've survived or been through hard things where they've had to address their mortality, and how those connections can really help move on from the actual active treatment part of cancer. So I think that's all for now. I will pass it over.
Is this good? Yeah, my kids would say I don't need a mic generally. I'm Cheryl Fox-Odell. I'm 49 years old. I'm a mom of 10 kids. I adopted my last 5 solo as a single mom through foster care. My older 5 joke, they're in their third, like 30 to 25. That is, each one went to college and to the Army. I got a new one to replace them, and it wasn't on purpose, but 5 and 5. So I raised 5 boys under 17, because one turned 17 yesterday, youngest being 12. I was diagnosed in 2020. I had a surgery in 2019, which was like a Burkitt's cyst, they thought, that had cut off my airways, and they pulled it out. I had surgery, said no cancer. Of course, that day I was like, I got 10 kids, you can't let me die, in surgery. Pulled it out, pathology came back, I was fine. I coached basketball 2 days later. We won a championship. A year later, I noticed a mass was back. I went in, had surgery, brought my pregnant daughter in with me to get the 20 some odd stitches out of my neck. And the appointment was late. He was never late, didn't think about it at the time. I didn't even get in the door. I was standing his face to mine, and he's like, you have squamous small cell carcinoma. And he said the word over probably 10 times. And I just remember sitting there being like, so cancer, and he would not say the word. And I just remember looking at my daughter and just sitting there, and 20 stitches out, no pain, no nothing. And finally he's like, we have a scan set up. We're gonna redo the pathology in your original cyst. I, of course, then self-diagnosed when I got the scan back, and I gave myself stage 5 cancer. Do not read your scans, anybody? Don't do it. So when the oncologist called and said you have stage 3, I celebrated because it was no longer stage 5. I was a bit naive because I'm a self-proclaimed and a community proclaimed super mom. migraines, Cheryl's still coaching. She will make sure all of the tickets are done, everything's done. She does it. So cancer came, COVID hit. Because I was diagnosed in 2020, prime of COVID. Plan of care completely changed. I no longer could have a rotating family helping me get back and forth. So it changed everything, including my treatment plan, and 9 family members who had COVID. So I could no longer opt to do chemo. I had to do double proton radiation treatments that were targeted. So I did 6 weeks of treatment. During that time, I was homeschooling my children. And it was in my head and neck. I couldn't eat. I did equally to them guys. I remember just being like, I got to do this. Get up in the morning, go to treatment, head forward, come home, homeschool, feed my kids, try to get a nap in. I'm not napping. I'm going to do what I need to do to get through it. I did not know the radiation was the gift that was going to keep on giving. And I was sicker. I was sicker 4 weeks out from treatment than I was during treatment. I then suffered with malnourishment because I couldn't eat because it damaged my head, neck, and throat. So I suffered with malnourishment for over a year. I'm just barely retaining weight now. And what was really hard for me is I had pushed through everything for years and years. And I get this clean diagnosis on August 7th. I go and get my 6-month scan, and I had 3 months of meals made for us. Like, we had this whole community that rallied. They wore orange bracelets that said Fox Strong. They dropped off meals for me and my family for 3 months. I did not have to cook. There was fundraisers, and it was phenomenal. May 6th, August 7th came, and I got the clean scan. And of course it was COVID, so we live streamed it, that I was cancer free. Everybody disappeared, like everybody but maybe 2 people. And it was fine because I'm a tough single mom. I got this, no worries. I still couldn't drive. I still wasn't eating. I was coming off 6 months of steroids, and it was tough. It was really tougher than I imagined. And everybody was like, they just were like, well, but you're cancer free. And I was like, I am cancer free, but I'm still sick. I suffer from neuropathy. So when my kids hug me, there's pain. So I suffer from exhaustion because I haven't eaten. I also don't pre-spit. So excuse me while I drink, because that's another, so it was relearning like all of these things. And I'm not somebody who asks for help. And it just kept weighing me down. What I do have to say is that the UVM Cancer Center was phenomenal. I started seeing Kathleen, and she said to me one day, she's like, if you were talking to, because the voices in my head are often, you didn't do enough this day. Why'd you sleep? Why did you not finish the 10 tasks on your list? And she said to me, if you were talking to somebody else, would you give them grace? Would you be telling them you didn't finish all that's on the list, or would you point out to them what you did? And so I had to change my complete frame of mind and remind myself to give myself grace, to work on find solutions instead of what I didn't get done. So I am 2 years out from treatment, but my weeks consist of lymphedema treatment so I can swallow. I see a swallow therapist so I can relearn to swallow. I've maintained my weight for 2 months, which was huge for me. I went on a trip without any children for the first time, because what I did discover is cancer brought every weakness I had and insecurity to the forefront. And the only one noticing them most of the time were me. And the voices in my head were always saying, it's not enough, you're not doing enough, which contributed to the decline of, like you said, the sadness and not. So I did start doing the mental health treatment, but I also did physical therapy to rebuild my muscles. I do, like I said, the lymphedema, like there's so many steps to recovering and it's a long-term process. Like, so the hardest part for me was when I see people still, they're like, oh, you kicked cancer's, and excuse my language, ass. In no way, shape or form did I kick its ass. I came out the other side, scratching, crawling, and I'm still fighting to get my health back on the daily. But I have made such progress that I went on a trip by myself. I danced on Coyote Ugly's bar. None of my children's like, you know, mortification. I have made a point of putting my doctor's appointments first, and anybody who has either a family member who has cancer or have it themselves, we need to put ourselves first. We're already suffering from guilt when we're doing that. So if you're a caregiver and you don't understand why they're cranky in the afternoon, it's because they literally have used every bit of energy to get through to the end of the day. And if you are the person yourself who doesn't understand why when your kid comes in and they're just excited to see you and you're cranky and don't have the energy to talk to them, I would say give yourself grace. Give yourself grace, give yourself the ability to understand that we really can't do it all. And we probably got here because we did. So to slow down and take your treatment, keep going with it. Like, because like I said, I'm 2 years out and I'm still working to get healthy.
That was wonderful. Thank you, guys. I'm going to pull just a few questions, and then certainly I'd love to hear from the audience if you have questions or if you want to share as well. I can share, I'm going to share a little bit of personal story as well as just my years as a patient navigator. So my role tends to be capturing patients at the start of their treatment, like usually at the day of hearing their diagnosis, their treatment plan. And so a lot of the supportive counseling and work that I'm doing with patients is helping them, hear the diagnosis again, understand what that looks like, but try to dive into what does this look like? How are we going to fit this into your already busy life and family and work? And that path that you thought you were on is going to go this way, and then it's going to go this way. And so much of my energy and time is, just being like, oh, this is the package and this is your team and this is your treatment plan, and trying to reassure the patient, like, it's okay that you don't know this stuff. You shouldn't know all of this stuff. We're going to teach you and we're going to educate you. And then treatment begins and life gets super crazy, as you all know. And even though we talk that this is the direction, things change and the plan changes, and that target on the wall just keeps getting moved over and over again. And so that sense of control, that sense of knowing a direction starts to get a little frayed. But it's crazy, and it's really hard to fit in some of the supports that these ladies are sharing that they found after. When you're in the thick of it, it makes sense that you're in that survival mode. You're surviving the side effects of treatment. You're trying to keep up with family. You're trying to keep up with perhaps a career, trying to put a game face on and enjoy those days in between the next treatment and the next days where you're feeling down. So in that time frame, as much as many cancer centers try to do is we offer lots of support services. We try to offer lots of support services and resources to capture those practical, spiritual, social, emotional needs during that time, but it's not always the time. And what we've realized is that it is the aftermath when things start to settle. And one thing I think, Emily, you had shared is, you know, when you're in cancer treatment, it becomes like, this is your hub, your home, you get to know all those people, and it becomes your routine. And then you're told cancer treatment is done, you're clear of cancer, and all of those supports seem to disappear. You know, that routine, that reassurance that, wait, these are the people that take care of me. These are the people that are going to make sure that if it comes back, they're going to, you know, be aware of that. And so that too is a loss. And I know Cheryl had mentioned, you know, just that the social supports that build and cocoon, hopefully the community supports, they too tend to withdraw and say, she's good or he's good. And so it's coming from all sides. And that is much more apparent, certainly to me, and I believe to many staff, is that our goal in cancer treatment is to hopefully get a patient through cancer and have them cancer free at the end of it all. But where we have realized is that there needs to be a lot more building upon and a plan, as Kathy has tried to allude to, and of trying to help patients figure out what is the wellness plan, because it continues. And it's not just addressing the stress and the PTSD, it is also addressing the medical issues that are the side effects of the treatment. The treatment drugs get you through survival, but it also brings about some pretty major life adjustments to heart, to lung, to brain, to memory, to intimacy, to physical appearance. All of those pieces take the forefront. But where do you go? Who guides that? You've had this team that guided your cancer treatment, but where's the team that's guiding all of the aftermath and how you address, and who specializes in cardiomyopathy from chemo-induced chemotherapy? Who's going to guide you with PTSD? That's the culprit from, you know, going through treatment. So there's a lot of specialty in that area, and building upon those, but also gaining the wealth from many who have been through that and have had to navigate, you know, some of those resources on their own. So I'd love to pull a little bit more from our panelists as to just, you guys touched a little bit on some of the things that you've trialed, but if you could just share a little bit more. Emily, you had mentioned a type of yoga, and I'm curious if you could just share a little bit more, because I know there's a variety of different yoga.
Yeah. So I don't actually love yoga, I have to say. My brain doesn't work with yoga. I like kickboxing. I like fast-paced music. I like to kind of zone out, and yoga makes me think about everything that I shouldn't be thinking of, like my grocery list and things, that everything I should be doing but yoga. I am fortunate enough that my neighbor is a yoga instructor, a wellness instructor, and she offered me yoga nidra, which is a form of yoga where you actually don't really move. It's like, it's me laying there and her talking me through, and it puts you into this almost trance type of state. And it just helped me take an hour to relax and to not think about anything, and to kind of, yeah, just get my body in a different place. I was very fortunate that she offered it to me. Otherwise, I never would have done it. But there are places in Burlington that you can do it. And that certainly helped me. I will say, I have a really great support system. My parents live here. I'm very fortunate. I am the type of person where when anybody else had a problem, I was the one bringing them food and taking care of their kids. So it's very hard for me to accept help. Even through this, I didn't accept enough help. I 100% say, if you ever are going through something, accept all the help that you're given, because I was offered it up and down, and going through it with COVID was a little bit more difficult because I was very isolated. So I couldn't be around anybody. No one could come in my house. So it was a little bit harder because you couldn't have people in your space. So I did find that piece of it isolating, but I didn't accept enough help. And I think I would have come out of it a little different if I had. now, like when I had those 2 months where I was struggling, I definitely called upon friends, and it was the summer and I was on treatment so I could see them more. And so that certainly helped me. Yeah, I would say if you can try yoga nidra, I didn't know what it was, but it's something that definitely, it's an interesting form. I still kickbox too. That really helps me when I'm, I kickbox like 3 times a week. So, and the same woman that does the yoga nidra also does kickboxing with me some mornings. So, and that is a completely different form, but that makes me get out a lot of aggression. And when I'm having a rough day, that certainly helps me. So it's a little bit of both.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I love that balance. Because Amelia, you had shared that you have been engaging with some outdoor. Can you share a little bit more? And I've heard that you've attended quite a few cancer conferences.
Yeah, so I also am doing kickboxing right now for 1 credit. I'm an undergrad at UVM also, so this was really convenient for me in terms of the location. But I think that something that definitely changed, and I'm hesitant to talk about the narrative that I hear a little too often of how you go through cancer and then you're like, carpe diem, everything's great, I'm a new person. I think that can be a little dangerous because there's a lot of PTSD and anxiety and depression that comes with that. That being said, there are also a lot of positives. I think I have gotten outside so much more than I used to. And so a couple things that I would highlight is definitely, like I touched on before, the young adult cancer survivor programs are all throughout the country, and there's a lot of different organizations. I don't know, it depends, it may or may not be applicable. It's from ages 18 to 39. So if you're diagnosed within that time frame, and then there's a lot of other supports that are outside of that age range. That's just what I have been using. And so it's been really awesome. I got to backpack in Yellowstone this summer and go kayaking in Oregon, which has been great. And I think the biggest part of that for me has been connecting with other people who've been through similar experiences, and also during treatment. And I think that both of you have touched on it as well. It's really hard to feel fully in touch with your body and the strength that it has. And so I think that the kickboxing or the yoga or going outside and pushing yourself in different ways and new ways, no matter what that looks like for you, is really important, because it's a way for you physically to reconnect with your body and be more appreciative of it after it being in a lot of ways really debilitated for a long time in an unexpected way. And that can be really consuming. So those are some of the resources that I have loved to use. And one of the organizations is called True North Treks. Another one is First Descents. And there's several others. If you just look it up, when I was like really isolated and bored, stuck in treatment, and I couldn't see anybody, I just started Googling stuff. And once you start looking stuff up, you'll be surprised to find how many of those resources there are. I do want to also just touch on the post-cancer, kind of the psycho-oncology part of it. I had a really wonderful team, but even so, I think that for those in the medical field or going into the medical field in any capacity related to oncology, there's still a really, really, really big disconnect between treating the patient holistically, as opposed to just treating the cancer itself and then moving on. And once the cancer's done, you're okay and you're alive, yay, which is great. But the emotional, mental repercussions can be almost as debilitating sometimes. So I think that is something that, in addition to all of the amazing CAR T-cell therapies that we're coming up with, I think simultaneously we need to be thinking about all of the ways to treat the patient as a whole human being, mentally and emotionally, and kind of integrating that more. And as being in school right now and doing bio, I definitely see that there's still like a big separation in education, where it's just like, learn these facts, memorize this. And then people who are going into those fields, there's a lot of separation there. So I think that's something I would highlight that still really needs to be worked on, is that post-treatment cancer patients and survivors need that support that goes beyond just treating the cancer.
I'd like to add on to that. So a lot of my treatment, I'm a little hesitant now because the radiation has kind of really wreaked havoc, and the malnutrition took on a whole nother life of its own and attacked other organs. And I struggled with atrophy, is insurance. Some of the treatments that actually work for me, like the acupuncture and I got a wonderful naturopathic oncologist that took me almost a year to get into. And I no longer had cancer by the time I got into her. But we're treating it because the fact is it can return if I don't change some of my behaviors. And I mean, all of us know, like, one of our biggest fears is it's going to come back. But I spend a lot of time fighting with insurance companies and even my primary doctor to get her to write referrals. I was lucky enough, the Cancer Society paid for 3 of my acupuncture so that I could at least start it and then plan away. I go every other week for it and pay out of pocket. But I think that's a piece of it too, for our doctors, is they don't realize that the hesitancy, when we come in and we have questions, it's met with, well, this is what we do. And I'm still living with side effects 2.5 years out. So I'm not going to just take this antibiotic that's being referred to me right now, or this pain med, because I don't want those side effects, because it does come with a side effect. So I think that piece, as far as like the medical field too, is there's a gap. Kathleen's been great. When I come in and I am frustrated because I just had our conversation with a doctor, a dentist, my radiation hit in my face. So I have teeth that are crumbling. And because the dentist that practices with oncology doesn't work with my dentist, I can't see him. So there's all these little gaps that I constantly feel like I'm still fighting a battle against my cancer, but also against like the medical field and the insurance itself, that I'm exhausting energy that I could just be healing myself. I was lucky enough, the Cancer Society put money up and there was grants. And then there is also a massage. Kristen is doing some massage because my lymphedema specialist retired. Being as rural as we are, there's a shortage of lymphedema specialists and, dentists that have experience with radiation. So that would be also like where there's a gap for me that's frustrating. Luckily, I'm persistent. So I am getting my needs met, but not without resistance. So.
Cheryl, absolutely. I mean, as you all shared, there's so much advocacy that goes into healthcare, and it doesn't stop, after you're done. And often a lot of the naturopathic, supports that can help, insurance doesn't cover those. So it is, trying to advocate, figure out where there might be some pockets of money, help, and just continuing to ask for assistance that way. So, and as Amelia shared, there are some pretty fantastic programs out there for, outdoor adventure, post-treatment, that do have funding, that will pay for those. So again, it's Googling, it's getting some of that information, and then, applying for different grants to be able to go to those. So we have a little bit of time left. I certainly would love to open up, and take some questions from the audience. I'm hoping for, for these 3 women, as well as, I think it would be really valuable. We're here to hear about, post-treatment, areas where perhaps you've found, some really valuable lessons and, things that have worked. And again, I think this is just a great place to share so that others can hopefully be taking notes and put it in their arsenal of things that maybe they want to look into and try. So if I could just ask, yeah, in the back.
Hi, I'm Jane. I've been on a panel similar a long time ago, back when we were in the basement of the Sheridan. So this feels so much nicer. 6.5 years ago, a longtime Kathy Macbeth fan club member. So I think, yeah, she's the number I give out to anybody in Chittenden County who gets cancer. So I think she's so important. So I just want to honor and celebrate the three of you for sharing. And I just, as the person who was always in that panel being like, it's okay to not be okay. And met a longtime close friend, my friend Maggie, when I said, you don't have to look on the bright side. And she had Maggie's bright side, which is the whole story I'll happy to talk about with anybody later. But the one other resource I wanted to share, if you're into Instagram, The Cancer Patient on Instagram, really important wealth of dark and twisty cancer humor, which I think in the aftermath can sometimes feel like a bit of a balm. But I'm also just really eager to be part of a conversation long-term about how do we actually restructure cancer care to prepare people for the aftermath and the ricochet. Because I also had proton beam radiation to the face, plenty of medical fallout, so many specialties I'm followed by now. Who is the captain of my team? Like you talked about, Amy, it's very unclear afterwards. So I'm really hungry for, and I feel sad. That was 6.5 years ago. I've been, shouting to anybody who would listen about this, and not that we could have changed it in that time and it will continue, but how do we keep making it a bit better? So we can get to the point where we talk about, I knew it was, even if it's coming, you don't know how bad it's going to be. Just like, you think you understand what being a parent's like, and then you don't until you have a 7-year-old child who doesn't want to go to school in the morning on Friday. So anyways, to say, I want to be part of that conversation about, in the infrastructure of the cancer center throughout treatment, what does that really look like to help, set people up for a little bit less of a stark fallout. So I really hope we can continue that, find venues to continue that conversation moving forward.
This is a question from one of the online viewers for Amelia. What is it like to be a student dealing with post-treatment side effects?
I think that it varies person to person. Something that was most difficult for me last semester when I was right out of treatment was physical appearance. Like, it was pretty clear I had no hair, no eyebrows, anything. And I was like walking into central dining, and it was pretty clear that like that part stood out, and that can be really hard to deal with, especially meeting so many new people and being in a new place for the first time. And I think, like I expressed before as well, it takes time to find people who you can share deeper things with, who are willing to discuss the fragility of life. And those things can be really hard for people to address when you're young, but that there are people out there who will talk about that stuff with you. And then I think also, just like everybody else said, in different contexts of your life, giving yourself a little bit of a break. College is a really, really, really rigorous environment, and you're expected to do everything all the time. And I still struggle with that. And so I think it's really important, not only if you're a cancer survivor, whoever you are, to realize that the structure of a university is not sustainable for a lot of students, and it's okay to not do something and to just sit in your room and do nothing. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I think going back to the grace thing has been really important for me, of just all of these expectations that are lined out in front of you to be a successful person. That kind of goes away when you're faced with life or death. And I think it's important to realize that it's okay to take a break as a student or anybody doing something intense in life. Thank you.
I just want to say one thing. I obviously lost all my hair too, and I wear a wig and I love it. And my hair has grown back. I mean, it's still short because I'm like 4 months out of treatment, but and every day my husband's like, you look so great. Why don't you not wear your wig anymore? And for me, it's what I feel comfortable doing. It's not that I like when I work out, I obviously don't wear my wig or things like that, but my work has never seen me without my wig. I feel comfortable in it. It's how I I just preferred being with it on. The other piece is that when you walk out with no hair, and you have hair, people question you or ask you questions or say, I found this really hard, like, oh, you got a haircut. And obviously I didn't. But then you don't want to be like, no, I lost it all in chemo because that, you know, so for me, sometimes not talking about it is the best medicine and just pretending. I mean, I'm not really pretending, but just, you know, this is what my hair looked like before. And no one, I mean, there's so many people in my universe that don't know that this ever happened to me. And eventually I will tell them, but I mean, I just told somebody at soccer the other night and she was like, I have no clue, you know, you look the same. And for me, that's what feels comfortable. It doesn't feel comfortable for everybody else, but I think giving people grace and what feels and works for them is really important in terms of the physical appearance can be very difficult. So.
Can I also touch on the physical appearance? Because my best friend of 30 years was my hairdresser. So my hair fell out. We did not do the cut that everybody does because she just fashionably styled my 20 strands until we could mohawk it and it grew back. One of the things about appearance that's been really hard for me is I was a full-figured girl, athletic, 226 pounds probably, which wasn't all athletic. And when people see me, they're instantly like, oh my God, you look so good. How do you lose all the weight? And it's hard for me because I don't feel the body image part of cancer, nobody prepared me for. I see photos of myself after, so I know I'm not hideous. But when I'm getting dressed because nothing fits, or I pull my hair back too much, I feel like a cancer patient again. It'll be 20 outfits later and I end up with the first one. So I do have to say, like, there's those moments when you run into somebody and they're like, oh my goodness, I love your hair. And I'm awkwardly like, yeah, thanks, I grew it back. Like, what do you say? So the one thing I would say, and everybody wants compliments, so I'm not saying don't say you look so good, but think about it when you're walking up to somebody. Just because for you, skinny is your ideal body type does not mean that, like, I really would have liked bacon for the last year. I'm just saying, would have liked bacon instead of being skinny. So maybe in the world of when you see somebody, instead of being like, hey, you look so great, being like, how are you doing? Like, not comment on the appearance, because it really is a struggle for many of us. I mean, even if you're not struggling with cancer, I think body image is tough for almost anybody if they really want to admit it. But that was definitely a struggle for me. Like, my physical appearance of who I was, I no longer recognize in a mirror. So.
Do you want to take another question from the audience? Yeah.
I had bilateral breast surgery, and that was back in 2017. And I had recently just lost my dad from lung cancer. And then in 2019, I lost my dad, my daughter's dad from lung cancer. So when I'm going through all this cancer stuff, I'm like, oh, am I going to die? And so it's this fear, it's a wall of fear that I feel like it's stopping me from enjoying my life that I have now. And I keep wanting to say, put it up on the shelf. I don't want you anymore in my life, but it's still there and it's driving me crazy. How do you get over that wall of fear and move on? That's what I want to know.
I hate to say it, but I'm not sure it'll ever completely go away. First, at least in my experience, but it's been pretty recent for me. But I think that when you are confronted with other people's mortality or like aches and pains in your body that are unfamiliar, maybe you're getting a cold and you think, oh no, am I dying again? That's a very normal human response. And I think that it's just trying to figure out a way. I don't honestly know. I haven't figured out a way to put that in a box and leave it there. I think it's something that you carry with. And what's worked well for me is just being able to acknowledge that and say that out loud to other people who've experienced similar things while doing really cool things. So I think that's why like the programs where I've been outdoors in like the most beautiful place in the world, talking about the fact that like we're still thinking about this, but we're here and we're looking at like this incredible view. And I think that for me sometimes can push beyond that and override the sense of like how fragile it all is. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think for me, the way that I go through it daily is that I really think that I have to live in the present, right? I can't fear the future because then I won't live in the present. And I can't, I have a 6-year-old child and I want to be, if I'm here for a year or 20 years or 30 years, like I want to enjoy every moment with her. And if I'm fearful of that every day, then I'm not going to enjoy it. And so I need to give that to her and to my husband and my family. And so for me, that's what's gotten me through the past couple months is that I really am like, I have to be present in this moment and enjoy it because I don't know what the future is. And nor does anybody, right? I mean, anybody could die in a car accident tomorrow. And so you just, granted, this makes obviously when you face your mortality a little bit more in your face, but that's what's gotten me through it. Where like, I don't want to ruin a day because I'm fearful of tomorrow. Like I have to enjoy today because no one knows what tomorrow brings. And it's easier said than done, right? But I think when you tell yourself that every day, and I say like, my daughter's name is Cecilia, like Cecilia, I have to be present for her because I want to be there for her. And whether that's for a year or 10 years, then I have to enjoy every moment of that.
Also want to add really quickly. I'm guessing if you've had a bunch of, I had 6 people who either started during or after treatment, same time as me, who passed away. So there's also this thing called survivor guilt on my bad days where I'm whining because my body's aching and I can't do whatever. And then I feel guilty because my friend Cher is not here with us. She didn't get to whine that her body hurts. So there's also probably a part of it for you that feels guilty. I know for myself, there's days, and then because what was the difference? We were diagnosed at the same time. We had the same treatment. Hers cancer, this person was different, but there's 3 others that, I was in a group with. So what is the difference? And how do you not stay stuck in guilt? Because that is the hardest for me. I have so much guilt sometimes because I didn't get what I need to get done. So-and-so didn't make it, but I did, and I'm miserable today. So owning that those feelings are very real and letting ourselves feel them through talking with Kathleen has been the biggest growth for me.
Yeah. I'm going to ask if one of our panelists would just take a couple minutes just for timing, because I know we need to wrap up. Would one of you just want to touch on the anger?
So Kathleen said to me, because I actually said to her, I was angry at myself. I was angry at myself that I got sick. There was no controlling this, and anger is easier to feel than fear and sadness. We're sad that our life looks different and it's harder. So it's sometimes easier to be angry than it is to really dig deep and figure out, like, we do have to learn a different norm. We've got to live differently and we've got to end, but you're not the only one that feels angry. We feel like our body let ourselves down, and we got to change that in our heads in order to feel better.
Thank you, Cheryl. I want to thank everyone on the panel. I want to thank all of you for attending.